There are these forces out there in the digital world. They feel a lot like forbidden magic. I'm talking about actual spells, just written in plain text, that can bring massive corporations to their knees. So today, we're not just talking about hacking in some generic sense. Oh no. We are talking about the dark art of turning a database against its own master. This is the story of SQL injection. Just look at that number, 77 million pounds. That's what a single cyber attack cost back in 2015. The target? TalkTalk, a huge British telecom company. We're talking stock price in the toilet, reputation shattered, and the private data of nearly 160,000 customers just gone. So who was it? Who was the mastermind behind this corporate apocalypse? A state-sponsored hacking group? Some elite team of cyber mercenaries? Well, the truth is way, way more shocking than that.
Yeah, the guy responsible? A 15-year-old kid. I'm not kidding. Not some super genius, not a government agent, just a kid. In his bedroom, probably in his pajamas, who found a tiny crack in the armor of a multi-billion-dollar company. He didn't need a supercomputer. He didn't need some secret zero-day exploit that cost millions.
Nope. All he needed was a simple trick. A kind of magic spell, really. One that's been around pretty much since the internet began. He used one of the oldest, most famous, and frankly, one of the most devastating attacks in the book. A technique that literally turns a website's own database into a weapon aimed right back at itself. He used SQL injection.
Let's start the video.
Okay, to really truly get the kind of power we're talking about here, we need an analogy. And if you're a fan of the anime Code Geass, you're gonna love this. In that show, there's this terrifying power called the Geass. It's the power of absolute, unquestionable obedience. Well, SQL injection? It's the Geass of code, and it forces a database to betray everything it was built to protect.
And look how perfectly this whole thing maps out. Think of it this way. In Code Geass, the main character, Lelouch, he can make anyone obey any command he gives them, just by making eye contact. In our world, the hacker, that's Lelouch. The eye contact, that's just finding any input bots on a website, a search bar, a login form, anything. And the Geass, that irresistible command, that's the SQL injection. The end result is exactly the same. The victim, which is the database, is forced to obey, no questions asked. Give me all your secrets. Delete yourself. Let me in. It's absolute, terrifying obedience.
All right, so what do these forbidden words, this spell, actually look like? Because this isn't just some abstract idea, right? It's real, tangible code. So let's get our hands dirty. We're about to deconstruct the exact line of text that can blow right past a login screen and give a hacker the keys to the entire kingdom.
Okay, so first we gotta understand what's supposed to happen, right? When you log into a website, the code running in the background looks pretty much just like this. It's a simple SQL query. It's just saying, hey, database, go find me everything from the users table where the username column matches what the person just typed into the box. Super simple, super direct, and it's supposed to be secure. But the hacker doesn't type John Smith into the username box. They type this. Take a good look at it. I know, it looks like absolute nonsense, right? But it's actually a perfectly crafted little trap. That single quote, the word or, that ridiculously simple equation 1 = 1, and those two little dashes at the end, that's it. That is the entire web.
And this is where the betrayal happens. The website just blindly takes the hacker's input and jams it right into its own code, creating this corrupted monster of a command. Now the database has to figure this out. It reads, okay, find a user where the username is admin or where 1 = 1. And the database just goes, well, I don't know about the admin part, but 1 definitely equals 1. That's a universal truth, so the whole statement is true. It doesn't even need to check the password anymore. And that little dash dash at the end, that's a comment in SQL. It tells the database, hey, just ignore everything after this point, which of course is the part of the code that would have checked the password. Boom, game over, you're in.
But believe me, that simple universal truth spell, that's just level 1. That's the kiddie stuff. Now let's look at how the real pros have taken this basic trick and weaponized it into something truly terrifying. Okay, imagine you're trying to talk to a ghost. It can't speak, it can't write, but it can make a noise. This is basically what blind SQL injection is. See, sometimes the database won't give you an error message or show you any data. It's just silent. So you have to get clever.
You play a game of yes or no. You inject a command that says, hey database, if the first letter of the admin's password is A, do nothing for 5 seconds. Just sleep. Then you hit enter and you start a timer. If the page loads instantly, the answer is no. But if it hangs for 5 seconds, you just got a yes from the ghost. It is painstakingly slow. I mean, it's like asking questions with a Ouija board one letter at a time. But it is brutally effective and almost unstoppable if the system isn't prepared for it.
Of course, nobody in their right mind is doing that manually anymore. That would take forever. No, today hackers use automated tools, and the undisputed king of these tools is SQLmap. This thing comes pre-installed on Kali Linux, which is pretty much the Swiss Army knife for hackers and security testers. You literally just point SQLmap at a website. It then becomes a machine gun, just unloading thousands of different SQL injection attacks per minute at every form, every link, every possible entry point. It figures out the vulnerability on its own, and then, with one simple command, /dump, it just rips out the entire database. It's a weapon of mass data destruction.
So yeah, these attacks aren't just theory from some textbook. Oh no. They have a long, painful, and sometimes, honestly, a darkly hilarious history of causing absolute humiliation for some of the biggest names on the planet. Let's take a little trip down memory lane.
Remember 2011? Long before that whole North Korea mess, Sony Pictures got absolutely wrecked by a hacking group called Lelouch. And how did they do it? With a simple, basic SQL injection, the first type we talked about. But that's not even the shocking part. The real story is what they found inside. Sony, this global tech giant, was storing the passwords for over 1 million users in a plain text file. No encryption, no hashing, just passwords.txt. Lelouch, of course, dumped everything online for the world to see, and they called it Sonage. What an absolute, catastrophic, and deeply, deeply embarrassing failure.
But you know, the most famous story about SQL injection isn't some corporate takedown. It's a joke. It's a piece of internet history from the webcomic XKCD that basically every single person who's ever written a line of code knows by heart. It all starts with a phone call to a mom. And the mom on the other end, you know, she sounds just like any parent would, a little worried.
And there's the punchline. The school's database, when they tried to add the new student, didn't just see a name, it saw a command. The drop table students part, well, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It deletes the entire table of students. Poof, gone.
And yeah, we laugh, right? But this joke is the most perfect, concise explanation of the entire problem. It's what we call input sanitization failure. The program was never taught how to tell the difference between plain old data, like a name, and a command like delete everything. It just blindly trusted what it was given, and the result was, well, total annihilation. Little Bobby Tables, everybody, the patron saint of why you never, ever trust user input.
Okay, so we've seen the devastation. With a power this absolute, this woven into the very fabric of the web, how in the world do you defend against it? How do you forge a shield that can actually stop the Geass? Well, thankfully, the solution is just as famous as the attack itself.
Your first line of defense is exactly what the school in the Bobby Tables joke failed to do: input sanitization. Think of it like a bouncer at a nightclub. Its job is to check every single thing a user tries to send to your database. It's looking for trouble. Those single quotes, semicolons, those double dashes. It scrubs them out, neutralizes them before they can cause any harm. It's an absolutely vital first step, but it's not foolproof. A really clever attacker might find a way to dress their malicious code up to sneak past the bouncer.
For real protection, you need the gold standard, the ultimate shield. It's a technique called prepared statements. Now this changes the whole game. Instead of mixing user input with your code, you do it in 2 separate safe steps. First, you send the database a template, a query with a placeholder, like select stuff from users where username equals ? That's the command. Then, in a completely separate transmission, you send the user's input, Robert, drop table students, semicolon, and you tell the database, hey, just stick this text safely into that ? The database never gets confused. It knows the first part was the command, and the second part is just data, no matter how dangerous it looks. The Geass has no power here. The spell is broken.
All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, SQL injection is basically mind control for databases. It tricks them into betraying their masters. Second, something as simple as one line of text can completely bypass all of your security. Third, this isn't some ancient history. It's still a massive problem today that has exposed millions and millions of users. And finally, and most importantly, the defense is a 1-2 punch. Sanitize your inputs like your life depends on it, but always, always use prepared statements. That's how you make your shield unbreakable.
So SQL injection turns the server against its owner.
But next time, we're going to flip the script and explore how hackers can turn a website's users against themselves with a nasty little trick called cross-site scripting. But we also want to know what tech mystery or hidden reality scares you. We are ready to explore the unknown. So tell us in the comments what mystery we should uncover next. There are no options, no limits. You decide. See you in the next episode.